I am so surprised because we just got in the new 2020 MacBook Pro and not the base model. This is the one with Intel's 10th generation CPUs. This was supposed to come next Friday, and then it was said that it's gonna arrive on Tuesday once it shipped, and it just came today. So I don't know if we're the only ones that got it early, but we are gonna be doing some benchmarks and some thermal tests. And this CPU isn't in any other laptop on the market. It's brand spanking new, exclusive to Apple. So we wanna see, how does this thing perform? How are the fans, the heat, and overall, how is this thing gonna run? So let's go ahead and open up the box. This looks like just any other MacBook Pro from the previous years. Of course, it is a little bit thicker, just slightly, because of that new Magic keyboard. That is a huge, huge improvement from the Butterfly keyboard. Let's do this quick unboxing. So you can't tell a difference at all. Looks identical. Weight-wise, I can't tell a difference either. And the keys, they do stick out a bit more, and they feel way better. So as I'm setting this up, I wanna let you guys know that we also have the base model 2020 MacBook Pro. So if you guys wanna see a direct head-to-head comparison in terms of performance, speakers, SSDs, cooling, and let me tell you that there are some big differences, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, you guys enable those notifications, because we will have a nice detailed video letting you guys know which one you should buy. So we're all set up here. Let's go ahead and jump right in, and I wanna do an SSD test. Let's go ahead and get started with Blackmagic Disk speed test. And write, we have 2300, and read a little bit under 2000. Let's let it run again. And right now on the screen, you guys can see the performance of last year's models. So the write speed actually went up by close to double. That's a big difference. The read speed, now we're getting over 2000. It actually went down a little bit, which is interesting. Now, one difference is this is the base model of the $1,800 one. And I think most people are gonna be best off buying this base without upgrading it. And the SSD that now comes with it is 512 gig instead of 256. Now the RAM also is 16 gigs instead of 8 gigs. So in the past, there wasn't that much of a difference between the base model with 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports and the 4 Thunderbolt 3 port model. Now Apple made it a much bigger difference, and effectively that makes it a $400 price drop if you wanted to get 16 gigs and 512 SSD. Most reviewers are not mentioning that. So let's go ahead and close Blackmagic Disk speed test and open up Geekbench 5. I'm gonna go ahead and start out the CPU test, and you guys can see we have the i5 with the G7 graphics. Now the 10th Gen chips, those are very important. They are 10 nanometer, they're more efficient, and Apple has a chip that only they are using right now. Both the i5 and the i7, only Apple has access to that. This one starts at 2 gigahertz base clock, whereas on other laptops like the Dell XPS, which we will also compare this laptop to, make sure you guys are subbed, that has a 1.5 gigahertz processor, i7. So this i5 should be faster. Now, CPUs are important, but what is more important is graphics performance, and we will be testing out graphics along with some gaming as well. And there we have it. Here are the scores. We have 1213 for single core and 4319 for multi-core. Keep in mind, this is the i5 that's 2.0 gigahertz. And if we compare it to last year's i5 that came with it, that was a 2.4 gigahertz, higher frequency for the base, but that one actually got 3907. So that means that this new 10th Gen gets about 10% higher score in Geekbench 4 with that lower clock. Now, what matters way more than that is the single core score. We have 1213. Last year's one actually got 952. That means that this new 2020 model has about 30% higher single core score, and that just makes it much snappier day to day. Now let's move on to graphics, and some of you guys said that the i5 probably doesn't come with the best graphics. You need to spend the extra money on the i7, but as you guys can see, even the i5 comes with a G7 graphics. That's the best one you can get, and that is excellent. Let's go ahead and run this metal test. And the score is 9,877. Now, that might not mean a lot until we open up the previous model. That got 5,628. So that is roughly 75% faster for this new graphics chip, and that's really where we're seeing a difference. 10% in multi-core, 30% in single core, and 75% more in graphics. And keep in mind, the graphics card wasn't maxed out the majority of that test. let's open up Unigine Heaven and see how that relates when we're really pushing it. I'm gonna be using the extreme preset. All right, and we have an FPS of 13.5. That is about 30% higher than the previous MacBook Pro. And what is interesting is during this test as well, I never saw the GPU usage going above about 75%, where in the past it was maxed out. And if we look at the temperatures, we're at 74 degrees Celsius, very low. If I mute the Mac, it's silent. You can't hear the fans at all, so it's running cool. I don't know what is going on, why the graphics isn't being maxed out. We're gonna have to take a deeper dive and figure out what's happening for our full review, so you guys make sure you guys don't miss that. Either way, we do have an improvement here. Now I wanna go ahead and run another graphics test in Final Cut to see the difference in rendering with the graphics. So in front of me, I have the Bruce X benchmark for Final Cut. This is gonna test the graphics for rendering. Let's go ahead and hit save. And we'll see how this does. Hopefully it's gonna use all of the graphics. Okay, this is very interesting. The graphics processor isn't even being used halfway, so maybe these new chips need optimization with macOS or something, but we are moving along fairly quickly. So far we're at 26, 27 seconds, and done, 38 seconds. Comparing it to the last year's model, it took 1 minute and 17 seconds, and actually the base one was slightly faster for some reason, 1 minute and 12. This is 38 seconds, and the graphics wasn't even half used when we were doing this task, so we're not pushing it to the limit. That is a massive difference, and that is where you're gonna notice the performance improvements of the new 10th generation processors and those graphics. That is literally twice as fast, 38.5. and the other one's 1 minute 17. Wow, so if you're somebody that's gonna do video editing, where do you get that much of a performance gain? Usually CPUs are just a small boost. Very impressive. I'm glad we tested this out with a more real world test. And now it's time for our thermal test and also a performance test, because we only saw a 10% difference in terms of the multi-core. This is Cinebench R20. It's gonna push all the cores to their limits. And what we're gonna see here is what Apple chose to do. These 10th gen chips are supposed to be more efficient, but that's if you're not pushing more power to them. And we'll see if Apple decided to push more power or maybe run the fans hotter this time around. I have Intel Power Gadget open. Let's go ahead and click run, and we're gonna be monitoring what is happening. And right off the bat, it hit 40 watts, and now we're running at 39 watts. Apple is definitely using more wattage. Previously, it would hit around 30 or so. So Apple is pushing these 10th gen chips hard. You guys see we're at 100 degrees Celsius almost instantly. Apple is trying to max out the performance with this machine. We're running at 3 gigahertz right now. Wattage is starting to come down, and fans are starting to spin up. So far it's been about 45 seconds. Our fans are at 4,700, still running warm, but the CPU dipped to 2.8 for a bit and back up to 2.9. Wattage is at 28. Apple, oh, 3 gigahertz right there. Apple's definitely trying to get as much performance out of this machine as they possibly can. I'm excited to see the internals, which we're gonna open up in our comparison to the base model if you guys wanna see that. We're about 90% done. It's very interesting that every once in a while it actually is going up to 3.1 gigahertz, then down to 3. So as the fans kicked up, it's allowing it to run faster. The wattage is now almost 31 watts. So don't be fooled that 2 gigahertz i5, when you're pushing it, is running at 3.0, 3.1, and right now we're about to get done here. And we have a score of 1708. Personally, I thought it was gonna be higher because the frequencies were staying up so high, but I guess we're gonna have to see how that compares to the base model, which we'll do soon. So there you go, guys. As far as thermals, it runs hot if you're pushing it, and it definitely is preferring to run faster and hotter. Apple hasn't changed that with this system, and the frequencies stay pretty dang high. And this is 100% the whole time. So this is pushing it like crazy. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. How did it do as far as performance and all of that stuff? How about video editing? That was a massive difference. Make sure you guys click that circle above if you're not yet subscribed. And if you are, enable those notifications down below. This has been Max, and we'll see you in the next video.